So, hello everybody. I hope you guys are doing absolutely amazing. It is literally the first day of December here. It's beautiful out. I hope you had an amazing Thanksgiving. And I'm going to try and keep this quick, but there's a lot I want to talk about. Look at these beautiful tomatoes here. And they're growing really nice. But it's growing seasons, guys. You know, I of course live in Florida, and there are so many people moving to Florida. But it's not just about Florida. You can apply this to any growing area, guys. I'm just going to walk up and down here and while I'm yakking for you to look at tomatoes. They did not do good on this trellis for some reason. Not happy, not happy. But it is so important when to know when to plant your crops. You know what I mean? And here in Florida, for instance, our growing seasons are pretty much hot and then cool, interspersed with some hard freezes every now and then, okay? So that's really limits what we can grow in those two seasons. You can grow year-round here in Florida, and you can grow so much, but a lot of your traditional crops, like I'm walking past here, peas and the tomatoes, the summer squash, green beans, you know, the yellow beans, the green beans, spinach, lettuce, a lot of that stuff that people like to plant, cucumbers, what else? Pretty much any kind of squash that's not a muscata, which is several pumpkins, butternut, stuff like that, if they can even take our area. All of that's winter crops, guys. What you're saying? Yes. A lot of people don't realize that you grow summer squash during winter here in Florida. You grow a lot of your peppers, your tomatoes in winter. Eggplants are a little more sturdy depending on the varieties. Eggplants can really take the heat of summer and the humidity, but tomatoes can't. Cucumbers can't. A lot of those crops, a lot of melons, I'm talking about true melons, you know, the honeydews, the cantaloupes, the crenshaw, the winter melons. Those are winter crops here in Florida, or very early spring crops. And that's true with a lot in the South, you know. But especially here in Florida, our growing is so different. We can grow so much, but the timing's different. You know, during the heat of summer, really the only things that can take that brutal heat and the humidity and the rains without a lot of care and a lot of input and a lot of spraying are pretty much watermelons, okra, and eggplants, and some peppers that really like the heat. A lot of your sweet bell peppers and everything, they don't like the hot. They prefer, you know, warm days, 80s, and then going into nighttime, you know, into the 60s and 50s, and that's the reality here growing in Florida and parts of the South. And a lot of people just don't know that. And I take it for granted, especially myself. I've grown for so long, my entire life. I've always been a plant geek, and nobody taught me this stuff. This is all trial and error. I've been doing this since I was a kid, gosh, growing everything in sight. But a lot of people that are just getting into that, and it is one of the most important things you can do, guys, is growing food. You really have to. But a lot of people just don't have that knowledge, don't have that experience, and it can be really difficult, especially when you're going to a big box store, Walmart, Home Depot, wherever, and they're selling, they don't come out with their seeds until spring. They don't come out with their tomato and eggplant, cucumber seeds and everything until spring. And here in Florida, that is the complete wrong time to grow those. You know, I deal with a lot of people moving here. Oh, my tomatoes are dying, my peppers are dying. And you know, it's May, June, July, August, and they're growing these things. And I'm like, yeah, that's because that summer squash cannot take the disease pressure, cannot take the heat, cannot take the humidity, and it cannot take the bugs that our summers have. So you grow summer squash literally from October until about March. That's when you're growing summer squash. That is pretty much our winter here in Florida. And same with tomatoes. Look at these tomatoes. Beautiful. No, we're super windy today. Sorry about that, guys. So, I mean, they're getting beat up in the wind. But these tomatoes, started them in seed cells and put them out. They've been growing here all of November. And now we're in December. And we've already had a couple really hard freezes out here. A couple hard freezes and a frost or two. And they actually didn't freeze. They pulled through just fine. But yeah, that's a little microclimates and whatnot, and I can keep them nice and moist. But this is when they're growing. This is when they're happy. You know, they're flowering. Look, we'll have tomatoes within the next few weeks, couple weeks, and I will have tons of tomatoes come January, going into February, and they'll keep pumping them out until they start looking bad. Probably around, March going into April. But name a crop, and it's so important to know when to start those and when to be growing them. And especially with Florida's population and especially Texas, Florida, we have very unique growing situations. We can grow so much, we can grow anything, but the timing, you have to know the timing, and it is completely different for more northern growers. They're opposite. They're growing tomatoes and squashes and broccoli and everything and peas during their summer. We're growing all of that in one season here in Florida. Our tomatoes, our broccoli, our peas, our cucumbers, our melons are all growing during our cool season. Which I argue we got about 6 months of cool here in Florida, even though, we can grow from freezing to 90 degrees in a day. That's Florida for you. But still, that's what it is. But those 6 months, like I said, probably October, November, December, January, February, and March is our prime season for growing 90% of what you're going to want to grow here in Florida. And then, of course, that's not including the perennials and whatnot, but any annual crops, those are pretty much, that's your time frame. And obviously you don't want to plant them in March, and sometimes, that's a little off. Sometimes if we have a cool September, you can get an early start on things. Sometimes if we're cool going into April, or even sometimes going into May, you can plant things. But, those are the 6 months where you really want to start and then have your crops grow mature in that time frame, guys, And of course, that includes all the alliums, onions, and the garlics and chives and whatnot, and most of your herbs. A lot of herbs cannot take the heat. Even rosemary. Rosemary does really bad here in Florida, and you got to grow it as a cool season annual here if you want to grow it. And again, name it. Even mint. Mint is cool season. Cilantro, parsley, all of those are cool season crops here in Florida. And even if they aren't technically perennial, it's better off to grow them as annuals because they normally don't take the heat very well. But as you see, we got a nice early start this season, because we were really cool in October. And a lot of these peas, we're putting in October, and they're flowering and giving peas now, the beginning of December. So a lot of it comes down to experience. You've got to know your area, you've got to know your climate, and if you have an early cool season, get a jump start on it in these peas. Normally, I would not be planting peas like this until right now, the end of November going into December. But I got these in the beginning of October, and they're thriving, they're flowering, and same with the tomatoes. Start them early, and we've got tomatoes literally 2 months earlier than we would have normally had tomatoes. So you just gotta get a feel for it, and you gotta get that experience. And unfortunately, it's hard. You can watch all the videos you want, and you can Google everything you want, but without your own experience or somebody local to give it to you, it can be extremely difficult. I'm gonna have to come fix all these tomatoes. They're nice, beautiful up on the trellis, and the wind is whipping them everywhere today, but got another front coming through. Right now the wind's coming out of the south, and then by tonight it'll be howling out of the north. But that's Florida for you. And that's what it is. This knowledge is not common knowledge anymore, and unfortunately it's sad because we're coming into a period now where, as advanced as we are, where we have so much information at our fingertips and we can consume so much information with AI and all of it, and yet the real experience and real it's gone. Okay, I doubt there's any AI out there that knows, oh, when should I plant tomatoes in Florida? Oh, plant tomatoes in Florida, February, March, April, May. But that's not going to tell you that, oh, we had a really cool start in October, and I got to plant these literally 2 months ahead of schedule, guys. You don't get that unless you have a feel for it and unless you work towards it and get that experience for yourself. And it is so important. It is so important right now to grow your own food, because we are heading into very, very hard times, guys. We are heading into a massive cluster of things blowing up money wise, and with that comes food, guys. So you've got to grow your own food, not even just about money. It's about your own health and ensuring that you're eating nutritious things. You can't find these tomatoes in the store, okay? I've got Amish paste here, and Pinocchio, and Bonnie's Best, and Clusters of Winter, which is an old Italian heirloom, that the ones they used to hang in the rafters in their houses. It's insane, but you don't buy these in the store. And if you don't know when to grow them, you're crap out of luck. Those summer squash seeds that don't come available in the store until March, April, May is the complete wrong season to grow those. So if you're not getting seed from somebody and either saving your own seed or knowing when to plant it, you're putting all that time and effort into a lost crop that you're not going to get anything out of, or you're going to be putting so much into it because it needs tons more water because of the heat. You need to spray it because of the fungus. You need to spray it because of the bugs, versus knowing when to plant it, and then you don't have to deal with all that. Especially here in Florida, during our growing season, if you time it right, we don't have any pests that bother our crops. Here in winter, the tomatoes, if I were to plant these tomatoes, March, April, May, the tomato hornworms and the stink bugs, they'd destroy the leaves, they would destroy the fruits, and there'd be fungus all over them. But because I'm planting it now in winter, there's zero pest. Zero. No hornworms, no stink bugs, sucking insects destroying my entire tomato crop. No fungus whatsoever. They're not wilting because it's pretty cool out, so they don't need more moisture because they're in the blazing heat. You understand? The peas, same thing. Summer squashes, don't have to worry about the vine borers and the pickler worms eating the fruits, or the what's it, the leaf mold, I'm brain for it, see? Alzheimer's, guys. The fungus you get on the leaves. I don't even get it anymore, so I don't even remember what it's called. The powdery mildew, there you go, that affects all the squash plants. You don't get that during the winter when you're growing them here in Florida. So, and yes, you do have to face that you're going to get the occasional hard freeze or frost. But honestly, that can be easily remedied, especially here in Florida, which I'm mostly talking to. But again, this knowledge is paramount to anybody that's growing food. You need to know when to grow things, and when you can push the growing times, and when you can start things early, or you need to start things later, or what you can do. But the frost, that's completely manageable. Cover your crops, or make sure they are just really well watered. Tomatoes, for instance, a lot of people don't realize tomatoes love the cool weather, and they're actually quite a few tomato varieties that can take a light frost. They'll get a little nipped. I mean, they may not look perfect, but though they grow so fast, guys, all these tomato plants here, they look absolutely amazing. They've been through a pretty good freeze. We got down into the 20s, and then through some frost at, 32, 31, stuff like that. And yes, they did get a little nip, but you can't even tell that now because they survived. They just kept growing, and they're fruiting now. So there you go. I hope somebody got something good out of this video, guys. I'm poking fun at Florida because I live here, but you gotta know, you gotta gain this knowledge, guys. You've got to, and really the only way to do that is through gaining your own experience, because you can read and listen to AI all you want, and you're not going to get it. You've got to get human knowledge, you've got to get human experience, and you've got to know when you can switch things up, when you can't. You got to be able to tweak things, you got to be able to work those little minute details that are everywhere and constantly changing because it's life. And that is something that you can't find on the internet, guys. Well, maybe unless you're watching this video and you've watched the whole thing, who knows? Or AI is not going to know that, guys. That is why I am staunchly against so much AI and AI coming into our learning, because AI is not flexible. It will never be flexible like the human mind can be. You can program AI to go a million times something repetitively, and if it messes up, well, that's an error. Okay, that's something that needs to be fixed. That is not something that is not a great attribute for your AI, where you can have a human do something a million times, and then they do something different, they mess up. And you know what? It clicks. That's not a screw up. That is how I'm going to do things from now on. Do you understand that? There you guys go. Love you. Hopefully you got something from this really long video. Grow food. Know when to grow food. And enjoy it, guys. Because I don't like raw tomatoes, but I love salsa and making my own tomato sauces. And these are amazing varieties that I have. I love the peas. You can't grow these or buy these at the store. This happens to be a yellow variety. I'm growing snap peas. They're yellow and purple, and just you can't, guys, unless you do it yourself and take that control and that power and use it for the betterment of yourself. Love you guys. Grow food. If you got something out of this, please like and subscribe and tell me what you think. Seriously, I don't give a crap about making videos, guys. I don't. Honestly, I'd prefer to not do this, but I'm compelled to share what I know and what I do. So love you. See you later. Beautiful peas. Look at those. Just gorgeous. And I'm getting ready to put more onions in between these rows here. And I got to tie up these tomatoes because the wind is getting in bad. And plant more peas and probably put some beans in. There you go. Turmeric is coming out of the ground now. I'm planting onions and peas and everything all around my trees. These trellises are here. They actually have grapes on them. We just put grapes on them, but dual purpose. The grapes are dormant, so why not grow peas and tomatoes up them, right? And hopefully the grapes, which are right here, will do extremely well next year for me and take off beautifully. Can't beat that. And look at all the tomatoes are flowering and doing absolutely amazing. Beautiful.